Oh, yeah.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Randy Stinson, and I'm the new provost here at Southwestern, and wanted to take a minute to greet you and pray for us here in a minute. But I wanted to tell you myself of my great appreciation for your role as adjunct professors. Higher education is a complicated animal these days, and the name of the game is do more with less. And that's probably true in other sectors, but it is certainly true in higher education. And the success of any institution in higher education is going to be contingent upon people like you coming to teach in some sort of part-time basis. Adjunct professors are going to be more and more in demand. And so I just wanted to tell you myself that this is not just a perfunctory thank you for serving conversation. I mean it. The president means it. This is a huge help to this institution. I realize there may be many of you or some of you that would love to be doing this full-time, and the number of full-time positions at theological institutions are shrinking, not growing. And so I'm grateful. I know that my hunch is you're all very busy people. I realize we're going to pay you to do this, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. And so I appreciate it and I'm thankful for it. I just want to encourage you. We're trying, first of all, I think tomorrow, is my 5-month anniversary. Don't send any flowers. I don't need any. But the president and I and many others have been in an absolute whirlwind of activity that I'm sure the rumor mill is alive and well, trying to tell people what has or has not been happening. Some of it's probably true, some of it's probably not true. But we have worked really hard to try to stabilize the institution for the upcoming semester financially, to stabilize the institution in terms of number of employees and number of faculty, to stabilize the institution just relationally outside of the institution with others, pastors and other people out there, just trying to repair relationships, create new relationships, and make some new friends institutionally. And so one of the many things we're trying to pay attention to is retention. Southwestern Seminary, the retention rates are not where they need to be, and that can be attributed to all sorts of things. It costs just as much, or it's cheaper to retain a student than it is to recruit a new one. And I don't know if what has exactly taken place in the past, but the professors are the front line for a student to notice a red flag in the life of a student. They miss class twice in a row. There might be something going on. They turn in an assignment and it's terrible, terribly done, horribly done. There may be something going on. And it could be anything from they're challenged with their marriage, could be anything from that to they're challenged financially and they're having to work more hours and they've missed their rent payment and they don't know what they're going to do and they think the only solution is to drop out, or they keep hanging on and they're getting bad grades and nobody ever actually knows there's a problem until they're withdrawing in Dr. Leeds' office and things have gotten too far for them to continue as a student. And so I want to encourage, I'm definitely going to be encouraging our full-time residential faculty in this regard, but I wanted to have just a quick moment here to encourage you that we're viewing you, adjunct professors, as frontline professors in the lives of these students. And so I would want you to hear from me. I want to make sure pastorally that we are caring for our students in every reasonable and conceivable way. We want them to be able to finish their education and launch them into wherever they're going to go in this world and fulfill the Great Commission. And those of you that all of you have been students before, so you know all the different challenges and trials and how hard it can be, and how maybe even how lonely it can be when a student is going through a challenge and they don't know really what to do, and they're afraid to acknowledge that they're having trouble here or there. So I'm just asking if you'll pay special attention to students when you open up the class with a prayer request and a student mentions a request that you think, you know what, that's probably a major hardship that they're going through. Ask them to stay after class for a minute and just ask if there's anything you can do. Do they need any help? We have many options here. If they are living on campus and they're having financial problems, I'm not going to put this in a brochure, but I would rather just trim their rent for a month and keep them in classes than them have to withdraw. And we could have easily, they're not, you know, I mean, it's a little bit of foregone rent revenue for us is minimal compared to keeping a student. And it's not just for our own finances, it's because that's why we're here, is to train these students, help them get graduated. And so I'm old school in terms of, I know there's a lot of hand-holding going that needs to happen these days in ways that I am not fully appreciative of at my age, okay? So, but it's don't hate the player, hate the game, right? So I'm sorry, we're gonna all have to hold our nose and coddle some people that we would not need that kind of coddling in this room probably, but we're gonna have to do it if we're gonna help reach these next several generations of students that just culturally have expectations that I did not have when I was a student. So we're just going to have to do it. And you're going to have to put your arm around some folks figuratively and give some encouragement and offer some help in ways that you might not have needed when you were a student. But I do care about these students. Now, how they were raised in their homes is not my problem and is not my fault. But we're going to have to do some things that to care for them. I care deeply about these students. I ate lunch in the cafeteria today, and it wasn't for the food. It's because that's where some students are, and I wanted to just see what's going on in their lives and hanging out with them. So I hope you hear my heart in that, and I hope you'll help us with that. This is just kind of a way that we can help maintain our student body and keep students in the classroom. So again, I deeply appreciate your willingness and ability to help us, and I look forward to a great semester. If you need anything from me, and I mean it, if you need anything from me, you can reach out to me directly at rstinson@swbts.edu. You can reach out to Dr. James. I'm going to introduce him in in a minute. Yeah. And whatever that might be. I have an open door policy. I realize you're not all going to be walking the halls daily on this campus, but when you are here, if you'd like to peek your head in, if I'm in that office and I'm not already meeting with somebody else, you are not bothering me. It is my job to be available to faculty. Now, there are a bunch of you and there are a bunch of others here. That open door policy can't work all the time, but as much as possible, I would be eager to be able to get to know some of you, and if you feel a need to just stop in and say hello, I would be happy for you to do that. All right, I'm going to pray for us, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. James. Father, we are thankful for the ministry that you've called all of us to, of teaching, reaching these students, training them up for gospel ministry so that they can come here from all over the world and then leave here and go all over the world to fulfill the Great Commission and to spread the gospel. Father, I pray that this semester would be fruitful for these men and women in this room. I pray that you would give them the vocational gratification that you've allowed me to experience for so many years in this task. I pray and thank you for the training that everyone in this room has gone through educationally to be qualified and prepared to do what we're about to do this semester. As every semester holds things in it that we do not anticipate, I pray for those in this room that are married. I pray that you would strengthen their marriages. For those that are going to be serving in challenging places and in ways, I pray that you would give them courage and zeal. And I pray that you would give all of us a real heart for these students as we shepherd them along and care for them this semester. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you.
Do I need to get that from you? Or do you?
Somebody does. Yeah. Oh, okay.
How many
I'm gonna
do we have?
do this in front of everything.
2 or 3, okay.
Okay, well, I'm not going to speak long now because Dr. Leeds has a meeting coming up. He is wanted in all different areas of the campus, and so I'm going to let him go first. But just to let you know how the rest of this time will go, we said this meeting would be 1 to 2, and we want to get you out of here by 2 o'clock. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Leeds, our Associate Vice President for Institutional Effectiveness and our Registrar, and he's going to talk for a few moments, and then I'm going to say a few words just about general academic administration, nuts and bolts, and then Dr. Greg Smith about technology in and out of the classroom. So, and Mark and Greg, if anybody has questions at the end, if you're able to stay for if anybody has questions.
Yeah.
Just repeat those, if you would, into the mic for the ones who are viewing online.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Mark Leeds, and I serve as the registrar here at Southwestern. And good to see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces and some old faces that we're glad to have back again. Yeah, so we love y'all. And I just will add a similar word to what Dr. Stinson just brought in terms of just availability. And want you to know you have me on retainer. So if you need me for anything, you just give me a ring over in my office. And I also have an open door policy, actually for students and for anybody as far as that goes. And so I'm available to you. I know that inevitably a few of you will find yourselves with some weird student scenarios throughout the semester that we'll need to talk about. And I'm there for you. If anything comes up, just let me know. And I will talk by phone, come by, see me, whatever I can do to help you, I'm there. So a couple things I just wanted to mention to you. This is a screenshot from WebAdvisor. And those of you that have taught for us before, you're well familiar with WebAdvisor. Those of you that haven't, or maybe you're coming back, we're going to get you logins and passwords for WebAdvisor. But this is the main section for faculty activity in here. And I just want to highlight the things that have little arrows by them so you know kind of what they do and how they work. But there is a place here under class roster select section where you can go in and pull up a roster of your students. Now, I find this really helpful when I'm teaching because it gives me the pictures that go with the names. And so I'll usually print that out. I'll just do a hard copy personally, just so I have it in front of me on my desk and I'm looking at it and just memorizing names and faces. So when I get into class the first day, I'm able to even start doing names with everybody. But that's where you can get that kind of information, your class roster area. Grading is, of course, super important for us. The grades are due, and I'll send you reminders on all this. You don't have to write it down. But I'll send a reminder toward the end of the semester that grades are going to be coming due. They're always due 2 weeks after the class is over. That's just how we do it. So you have 2 weeks to get everything done, wrapped up, turned in. You just click on that link, and it'll pull up everybody's name in alphabetical order, a little box, and you just put the grade in, letter grade, A, B, C, D, F. Pluses and minuses can go in there. And incompletes can also go in if you happen to have an incomplete there. So real easy. I'll send you a reminder with a link to this particular page. and a few little instructions that you can just read when we get to that point. So that's grading. Search for sections if you happen to want to look through and find other classes that are going on campus, that kind of thing, just a little search feature that's available there. Class schedule will show you your classes. And this is important because please be sure that you check your room location before you go to class the first day. We've already made room assignments for the fall semester, but they can change. If I have a certain class that maybe fills up, another didn't get quite as large as I was thinking, I might swap classrooms or something. And so you want to check that right before you go to class. If you check it a week ahead of time and you show up, we might have you in a different room. So please be sure that you check that in that location. And then last thing I'll say is just highlighting this little zone here called My Graduates. When we get to the end of the semester, I'll send 2 reminders, one on grading, like I already mentioned. The second will be on graduation. So it's important that we receive any information about a failing senior or a failing graduating student, if you want to speak of it that way, by noon on Thursday at the very latest, noon on Thursday before graduation. Sooner is always better than later for me. Those are some of my least favorite conversations that I have to have with students is when I find out, you know what, you're not going to be able to graduate, you failed a class at the end. Hopefully that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen every semester, but when it does happen, the sooner I know, the easier that conversation is to have. So we really need to know by noon on Thursday. So when you click on that zone, it will show you, and once again, give us a little bit of time because the applications for graduation are still coming in. So the first week of the semester, you'll see some names in there for your eager students that have already given us their grad applications. But over the next few weeks into the semester, we'll be adding names to that as students apply. By the time you get into, 4th week into the semester, you should have a pretty good list. But once again, check it at the end. Let us know if anybody's going to fail, and that will give us what we need to know for our graduating process. Okay, what I already expressed about this, 2 weeks after the class is when the grades are due and when the failing grades are due. A couple of other things. At the end of the semester, we do a student rating of teaching process, and so that will be going on toward the end of the semester, and they do a little survey. We'll provide those results to you about a month after the semester's over. It takes time to get all those in, processed, and do what we need to with them. Just gives you a little bit of information about how you did. It'll give you a spot where you can kind of compare where you are on each row of that student rating of teaching with your peer faculty in the same school that you're teaching. So if you're a music faculty member, it will show you, here's what on average, music faculty scored this in this row, and you scored that. So you can kind of see, am I above or equal or a little below? Those results will go to all the people you see listed here. So it will go to you, and then to your dean, who obviously is supervising you in your adjunctive capacity. And then also the provost, Dr. Stinson, and president will receive copies of those. So that's just how that works. Your peers won't see them, that kind of thing. It's just, that's the hierarchy for how we do that. That's student rating of teaching. And then last slide, and I'll be done. Certainly take questions in a minute, but last slide here on assessment. So if you are teaching a class that has some element of student learning outcome assessment that is done with this, things like maybe a pre-test, post-test in some of the basic survey classes, or maybe a rubric in some of our classes, you will be notified about this from the dean's office. Okay, so it won't be everybody in this room, but if you happen to be teaching some of those classes where we've decided we need to put a little thermometer in to measure student learning outcomes, and this is both to help us improve and is especially important for maintenance of our accreditation that we hold with ATS and with SACS and the music accreditor also. So you'll be alerted if that's the case. And if you are, then the key thing is just to make sure that you go ahead and follow through with that process with the dean's office. Really helps us a lot to make sure that we keep that process going, that we have consistent data from year to year. We can compare, we can track, we can make improvements over time, come up with action plans and that kind of thing. That's all I got for you today. But I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Yes, sir?
My understanding is that the fall 2019 schedule was getting solidified,
and it wasn't a week or so ago. So
Yep.
has that been solidified? Is that posted or about to be, or where does that stand?
Yeah.
And then there were some changes about start dates and days of the week that the semester starts and ends on.
Yep.
That might be different. Could you
Yeah.
talk me through that?
Thanks
I
for
wanna
that.
Make sure that I'm clear on what we're doing.
Yeah. So the question, just repeating for online, is about the fall semester and the dates, beginning and end dates, and just the solidity of the schedule itself. So as you all know, as we've been making a lot of changes over
I
time.
was going to mention these,
Yep.
Mark. These are the,
Yep.
I think, the major ones that
Yep.
it would be helpful for them to know right now.
Uh-huh.
In regards to syllabus things, you know, if you put a course schedule on your syllabus, you need to know these things.
That's exactly right. So the broader issue of the schedule in terms of who's teaching what and that sort of thing, I'm sure that the dean's office should be in direct communication with you about what things they're asking you to teach. Now, they're also, just with our new administration, we've had new faculty hired and new personnel coming in, and that's resulted in some changes that are, I would say, sort of atypical. Normally, we would have this really set in the spring when we do registration, but it has been a lot more fluid this time than normal. So great question. I think it's pretty solid at this point, but I certainly couldn't rule out a dean needing to make a change based on a new hire or something. So we'll have to just rely on the deans to communicate that to each of you on that front. When it comes to the dates of the semester, though, this is true that we have adjusted the dates so that we used to start on a Thursday. Those of you that have taught for us before, start on a Thursday, have like a Thursday, Friday, and then the first full week would be the week after that. We're now starting on a Monday. So we've backed up the semester, and we're working with IT to get this pushed through so that when you look on WebAdvisor and you're looking at your class, it will have the right dates. And so I think there have been some confusion about that. But we're working with IT to get that fixed. But the start date for the semester is, in fact, August the 19th. That's a Monday. So if you have a Monday class, August 19th. If you have a Tuesday class, August 20th, so on and so forth. And then we're ending, last class day is, and we'll see if we can maybe email this out, Stephen.
Sure.
But just verbally, I'll express it now. Last class day is going to be November the 22nd. That's the Friday before Thanksgiving. That's different than what we've been doing. And finals will be given online. We won't have an in-class final component. That's just a new way that Dr. Stinson has wanted to move with the schedule. Right.
All finals are online.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's correct. So that's definitely a change for us, something new. So if there are in-class types of assignments that you need to do, that you need to assess something for the final that you have to do in person. I don't know what that may be, but you all may have assignments of that sort, like in the archaeology area, maybe some ceramic analysis or something. You can't just put a picture online or something. Then you just have to work those in earlier in the semester. We just can't do it, so we won't have in-class finals. So then that's last class day is November 22nd. Then you got Thanksgiving, and then finals are online November 25 through December 4. But once again, we'll make sure we get those dates emailed out to you. Great question. Did that cover everything you were hoping?
Yeah. I'm also interested in, is there a fall break?
Yeah, the fall break we still have, and it's the same, the week of, it's always the week of October 3rd.
It's the first week of October.
Yeah, September 30 to October 4.
That would be helpful to have that published somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we'll get you these dates emailed out. So great question. Thank you, sir. Anybody else? We good? Okay, once again, I'm available to you. Y'all please let me know if I can help you in any way, and I'm off to my next meeting.
Thank you, Lord.
I was actually hoping that they would ask more questions that were things on my list that you can answer instead of me. So, yes, talking about the academic calendar, and the primary reason this was done was because the new administration wants more opportunity to have winter term classes, term courses. So we're actually going to have 2 one-week semesters or sessions in December, in addition to the 2 winter terms, 1-week winter terms in January. And so in order to do that, we needed to end this fall semester sooner. The fall break, as I said, is September 30th through October the 4th. And it's no longer going to be called fall break. We're going to have to train ourselves because most of us have utilized the term fall break, but we're going to call it fall reading days. So we don't know what our students are doing. Yeah, fall reading days. Yes. So it's a break to read. So I think that's the main dates you need in order to kind of fill out the syllabus, but we will send, I was going to plan to send that to you. As far as just, I don't know if it means anything to you, but the nomenclature for professors. Hey, Kelly King, it's good to see you. It's been a long time. Nomenclature change. We're moving to language adjunct professor, adjunct instructor. And so if you have your doctoral degree or dean approved lifetime experience, you'll be adjunct professor. If you don't have the doctoral degree, instead of teaching fellow, which is the term we've used for the last several years, you'll just be adjunct instructor. So the other good news for adjunct professor, if you have your doctoral degree, it's $1,000 per hour, up from $900. The adjunct instructor is $600 per hour. So that one didn't go up at this point, but it may go up in the future. We've been stuck at $900 for many years. I don't know how long, but it's been a long time. So this is a momentous occasion. I wanted to say a word about email communication. As an adjunct instructor or adjunct professor, you receive a swibits.edu address. This is not, if you're a student, you have a what's the student? I always forget the, it would be stephen.james@email.swibits.edu if you're a student. We're not talking about that swibits.edu. We're talking about, it's probably your first initial last name. We want to encourage you, that is the email that you use. You communicate with students with that email, and you check that email regularly because that is the only form of official form of communication that we have with you. On the other side of the email point that I want to make is we need to, and this will be a change for many of us, myself included. I haven't guarded against this or even really thought about this, but we need to email students only, communicate with students only via their email, their student email addresses. It protects you and it protects the institution. So it may be a little more work for us. If a student, like I said, I'm going to be one that has to train myself to do this. If a student emails you from their Gmail account, email them back, say, I've answered your question via check your student email. And we'll train our students to begin to check the student emails more often. And then go in Blackboard, get their student email or email them through the Blackboard system, and it'll email them. Yes. And is it true, Adam Dodd, that we are sure that when we go through Blackboard to send communication to our students, that the only email that is input in there is their seminary student email?
Should be the case.
That it should be the case. That was not very confident, but yeah, I understand. These types of things happen. The student personal emails get into our system inevitably because when we reach out to prospective students, they don't have a seminary student email address, right? And so their personal email gets put into the system here at the seminary, the system that we use in admissions, and then, it finds its way into other programs, other other software and things. So we'll just have to be diligent to only email students to their student email accounts. Academic dishonesty. I just want to say a quick word on this. You know, we are a grace-based institution, and it's good, and that, I think, goes all the way to the top. We are not necessarily or automatically going to expel students who are caught cheating. Okay, but we, as instructors at this institution, we need to report when these types of things happen. It helps us as an institution. They may get a warning. They may, get spoken to by the dean, our new dean of students, who is Charles Carpenter. He's our new dean of students. He's the principal's office. If any of you know him, it fits because he was a wrestler. He's a big dude. But it will go through that office. But the reason it helps us is it will help us to see a pattern. If a student is cheating or plagiarizing and we report it, even if that student is shown some grace, it's still reported. And then if it happens again, we have record, and we begin to see a pattern that this is something that needs to be dealt with a little more force. So I ask that you do that. I think that's it, except to introduce Carissa Wilson. Most of you know Carissa. Wave your hand, Carissa. C. Wilson at swibits.edu. She assists both me and Dr. Smith in the office of the provost, and she is in charge of making sure you guys have all your paperwork in. And want to reiterate what Dr. Leeds said. We have an open door policy. Come see us at the provost office, and we'll hear you out, and we'll try to help you in any way that we can. Okay, so we all three, me, Dr. Smith, and Carissa, are office in F105, which is the provost suite, and so feel free to stop by anytime if you have questions. Do you have any questions for me at this point? Yes, sir.
Just a point of information, and you may be ahead of this already, but I teach a course over at EBU and was in their adjunct workshop. And one of the things they underscored is a new law that's just been signed by Governor Abbott just a couple of months ago, dealing with sexual harassment, improper sexual conduct. The law has been changed to state, I forget what the former word was, but it's been replaced with required. So if any of us see or hear anything related to sexual harassment or sexual misconduct, and we do not report it, I guess, to the
mandatory reporter. Are you thinking
mandatory reporting, then we ourselves are liable for jail time. It's serious.
Yeah. I wish Dr. Leeds was still in here, because he has brought this up with Dr. Stinson. Well, yeah, I appreciate that, and I need to repeat this for. So it was not necessarily a question, but gentleman bringing up the recently passed. What is it? Is it a law? What is it? State law.
Legislature
signed by Governor Abbott, and it has to do with sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and what was the proper term? Mandatory reporting. Now, Dr. Leeds actually had a question, so you got it at DBU.
Holly Taylor, DBU, is the one in charge.
Yeah. DBU is not exactly the same as we are. We actually we may be exempt from this. Look, we want to report this always, but we may actually be exempt from this, not because we're a Christian institution, private institution, but we're a Christian private institution that does not take federal funding. That's the difference between us and DBU, is they take federal funding.
This is a state law, not a federal law.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just
Yeah, we don't know either, and I don't know, but it's a good word, and I appreciate you bringing that up because it is something that the administration needs to have on, on their radar. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions or?
So the point being, whatever the law is,
Because we're a Christian institution with character and integrity, we need to report.
Yeah.
We know regarding sexual abuse or misconduct. If we know about it, we need to report.
Right, that's,
whatever the law
In my opinion, I agree with that. Yes.
it's not gracious to keep it quiet.
Yeah. I agree with that. Anything else on the hot seat? I feel like. Man.
I have one, but I'll ask you after.
Okay. Yes, and feel free to do that.
Regarding what you mentioned about plagiarism and reporting,
Yes.
I had a situation this last semester where I had a student who, I just reported both of them, but I had one that was more obvious, like intentional. That was more kind of a result of laziness. It just appeared to be,
Sure.
that kind of thing. Would you say that should be reported as well? Or would that be just dealt with the student professor, or would you say that something like that should be?
I think as long as you report it with context and you just give the full explanation, I think that it's good to go ahead and do that. Yeah, but it's definitely, you get into some gray area and a judgment call on that, but I think it will help. But if you explain the full context, that's going to inform.
Right.
That's going to inform what the next steps, if there are any steps. You may say, I feel like the student responded well to this, and I feel like it's over, but I just wanted to, to do that. Yes, Dr. Stewart.
Dr. James, I had
A student who, for medical reasons, missed more than the number of classes that our institution allows. And I contacted Dr. Leeds, and he apprised him of the situation, and he gave me counsel all along the way as to what he felt was appropriate. And we extended the student's ability to get the information, the classwork in. But he was willing to work with me and did a great job in guiding me. I didn't feel like I had the authority as an adjunct professor to alter the requirements of our institution. So again, he was very helpful, and I encourage any of my fellow adjuncts to feel free to contact him, and he'll make an exception where appropriate.
Yes.
He always gives good counsel.
So this was a comment for the ones here virtually with us about the grace of Dr. Leeds. And this past semester, one of our adjunct professors had a student for medical reasons missed had more absences than we allow for, which is, what was it, 6 in a normal class period, 3-hour class period. And he did the right thing by going to Dr. Leeds and kind of working that out with the students. And that's where we are. We're a grace-based institution. And so we do help in those situations. The point I want to underscore is just communicate with Dr. Leeds. Communicate with the registrar's office always in those cases. And you're good to go. If you get Dr. Leeds' approval, you're good to go. So that's a good word. The last thing I'll say is we ask for your patience and we thank you for your patience. As you can imagine, just with the transition, a new administration coming in, there have been so many things to do and there have been so many changes. Naturally, there's always changes when you have new leadership come in. And so some things we may be a little bit slow on. Other things we may not be able to give you a full answer or a direct answer immediately, but we just ask for your grace as we work through the transition and work with Dr. Greenway and Dr. Stinson as kind of iron some things out in the midst of the transition. and the change. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Greg Smith, who is Associate VP for Distributed Learning. He can explain what that means because none of us know what it means.
And it's good that it's in a veiled secrecy. Now, distributed learning means, long and short, wherever the technology allows for students to learn. So as students meeting up with us, the professors, through technology like this, it's a smart classroom, or through the LMS, Blackboard. And the exciting thing is these days we have lots of students coming to us through the technology in ways that would have maybe kept them or prohibited them from being a Southwesterner. So this is the new day that we're in, and distributed learning means you've probably I've met a lot of you through flexible course training, whether you're a faculty or a teaching assistant, now adjunct professor. And what I want to say about that is I'm going to show you a couple of the things out of that flexible course training that I think are the most relevant for all of you in this room for this semester. And if you would like, if you've got time, what we could do is meet up in Justin Conference Room at a convenient time for you. Even if you're not teaching a flexible course, I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and kind of as a consultant, show you some best practices, how to do things in Blackboard, how to use the grouping feature in Blackboard, or I'll show you a little bit today, but I could talk to you more about it, how to properly deliver a timed midterm or final. Especially the final exams at the end of the semester all have to be online. So there's one example of technology that we all have to own and know how to do well. So I'll focus in on that. I'm going to show you a little bit about some retention strategy that's really easy that I've been using in my class that I'd encourage all of you to do as well. And I recognize a lot of you probably do this on the backstroke anyway. I just encourage, there's some easy things to do using Blackboard to alert all of us of the students in our classes that might be falling behind. The trick is to catch them early in the semester and have a serious conversation with them week 4 instead of week 10, you know. So I'll show you what that looks like here in a little bit. So let me go to screen share, and I'm going to show you, here we go, Blackboard. I think they're, oh, I have to hit the blue button there. So, I think what I wanted to do is show you here. Okay. Oh, I know what I need to do. Control P or Windows P. Duplicate. I think that'll work. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Now it's so. Oh, now you're seeing that. Okay, we're getting close. Now I need to blow this back up. I think that's my screen. Yeah, okay. All right. One thing I'd recommend for all of you is to make sure you go to your classroom before the first day of class. Some of you might be teaching out of some of these new smart rooms. You've got console, you've got touchscreen monitor. You might use PowerPoints. You want to throw things up on the display screens and be able to walk over and point for emphasis when you're lecturing. So all of these things are even true now. The technology's invaded the residential classroom space that we have on campus. So just make sure if you need help in the room and you're not teaching a flexible course, but just one of our normal residential courses, you need to contact Adam Dodd and Campus Technology, and they'll be glad to set up a very quick appointment with you in your actual room. And if there's anything or any questions that you have, you can always ask them for a little tutorial in your smart classroom. All right. What I want to do is show you what I did in my spring class. I taught one of the Old Testament survey courses, so those get rather large. I think I have about 170 students. The fun thing is, as a professor, I'm looking at 70 residential students in one of the larger Mathena rooms, and the rest of the 110 students I'm looking at through the camera. And they're everywhere in the world. Just thrilling as a professor these days. It's really exciting. A lot of them are out there. They're older students. They're full-time ministry. They can't get to the Hill. That's why they're distant students. So I've been teaching the faculty and some of the adjuncts doing our flexible courses, right now that's our delivery course for reaching those students. There's certain best practices that we can use to really create the most wonderful learning experience for those distance students, as well as the robust learning experience for our residential students. A flexible course that we are doing these days brings together residential and distance students together in the same class. And that's kind of the new thing. So that's what we're doing these days at Southwestern. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, in the time that we have left, show you some things in my Old Testament survey course. Now this is the dashboard from that you use to create things in Blackboard. The one thing up here is the Seeing Eye view. You can use that to enter student preview. There's a way to look at your course through the eyes of a student. So you need to know that. And that way you can test links, take a test as a student would take a test, and all of those things. So student preview, that's a best kept secret. A lot of the things that I tell professors is to organize your class. And this is true for a residential class. So you can customize the navigation pane here. So these are the first level subhead items for your class. They connect students to one click in and find. So it's an efficiency thing for them. It's an organizational thing for students to have your class nice, neat, and tidy. And then what I do is create weekly folders, date stamped, for all of the things that go in for a student to see, do, or read, or be evaluated on. So all of the course links, whether they're uploaded PowerPoints, I'll just show you what those will look like, just as an example. And I won't get into it too much. There's my Instagram feature of Blackboard where I'll post a pic and a narrative and share life with my students. So every click in is an experience for me to meet up with my students and share about me. And by the way, that's something that students keep telling me. That's a unique experience. They really appreciate getting to know the faculty through their online experience or through the residential experience. Your residential students, you'll be seeing them each week in class or maybe walking across campus. But what I've been thinking about creatively is how to create more touch points with students who are just showing up to class, maybe synchronously live, or even if they're watching the recording later in the week, they're clicking in around Blackboard and they see me telling a story and sharing life. That's really extra, but it creates esprit de corps amongst your students. And they really appreciate getting to know us, the faculty. So here's what I want to do. Let's go immediately to the Blackboard Grade Center. And there's a couple low-hanging fruit that you can do right out of Grade Center. And pardon my confidentiality, I'm going to have to show student names, but a lot of them did really well in my class. What's that?
We can't read them anyway.
Oh, you can't see those names? Good. Okay, yeah, stop. I might get in trouble with confidentiality rules. Just don't tell anybody. So what is it I want to show you? Okay, so the total points bucket here, you see total, what you can do for retention. So let's talk about retention. You can sort ascending. This, I don't know. I probably shouldn't show. I don't know. I mean,
Well, you can hide it if you want to hide it.
I can hide it. Oh, I can hide first names, hide last names. Well, whatever. Okay, so you can see the point totals for students who are not doing well. Early in the semester, you can email those students. And what I do is use Grade Center to sort. And by week 4, me and my teaching assistant have done all of the grading for that, all of the assignments. So what we can do is go in and check in on students and email each student specifically right out of Grade Center, right there. So I'm checking those students, and I want to email selected students. And when I do, what I want to say in the email on week 4 is 2 things. One, I want to remind that student that they can drop the class and get a refund, a tuition refund or a partial refund, depending on what week they're in, early in the semester. If life has happened and they can't finish the class and they know it, you give them that option. Remind them of that option. I'm amazed at how many students don't know or forget. And then they've lost money, and then they're not showing up next semester because they've lost that money. They can't pay for the tuition for the next semester. So that helps them regroup and mount their resources for the next semester and take that class again, maybe with you or with a different professor. The second part of the email that I want to say to students is, B, if you plan to catch up and finish the class, tell me what your plan is week 4. And then if I don't hear back from that student via email, I will call them on their cell phone. Because through the roster that Dr. Leeds showed you, normally these days, students are giving us their cell phones. So I can call or text. Turn up the heat, let them know I'm serious. And I want to avoid this. I want to avoid having that conversation week 10. Because week 10 means the student's asking me they've not done anything or they've fallen way behind, and they want to ask you this: hey, can I turn your 14-week semester course into a 4-week course? And the answer is unfortunately no, and I have to be mean. And I don't like to be mean. I'd rather be a little, just. But yeah, I have to be fair.
I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Given the other advice about keeping all of our correspondence recordable via email, would you suggest that a good compromise between that and what you're saying is calling them up and saying, I sent you an email?
I don't mind calling a student on a cell phone.
I think it's more documented written communication.
Okay.
That is the concern. But I have to check that because already, I've had to call students to come speak with Dr. Stinson on things. So I think it's more about having not email, not in writing, communicating with students outside of their student email. So I think it is okay in that situation.
And it's a small handful, but it's just those students that, for whatever reason, have a hard time managing their own student-assigned email account. You're just reaching out to them. Yeah.
I was just going to say, at another unnamed institution where I adjunct, we're instructed and encouraged to call each of our students before the beginning of the semester. Now, that's different when you have a limited class size versus what you're talking about. But it is a good way to make that immediate, especially for an online class. It's a good way to make that immediate connection point with your students. And that's another institution that qualifies all written communication to be done either through the LMS or through email.
So calling's okay in their book. Okay.
In their view, calling is appropriate in addition to communication through emails.
I don't call all 170 of my students, and I still win the day in getting to know them and monitoring them. So, all right.
Back to
Yes.
so someone from seminary email us when those are coming up after 4 weeks. You need to check your student because this is the last week.
This is just something I am as a consultant saying, hey, this is an idea that's easy to do, and I'm recommending that you do it. So that's all. So if you don't do it, nobody's going to holler at you. But it's just something, because Dr. Stinson talked about retention. I think overall, campus-wide, we'll be hearing more about retention. We have a new dean of student success and the new dean of students, right? I just heard about that from you today. So there's going to be more intentionality that a lot of us, even everybody on the Hill, will be hearing about certain things to do. And
no, those dates are on the academic calendar. When that is finalized, we'll send that out, and all the dates about getting full tuition refund, a portion, whatever portion it is, 25% of the refund, whatever it is, you would know half or whatever. But the dates are on the academic calendar.
Okay, so let me show you in the time that we have left a few pointers on creating the testing situation or experience for your students and avoid some pitfalls. So I'm talking about best practices for creating a midterm or a final using Blackboard tools for creating a test. So in the course tools section in the control panel view, you go to test surveys and pools. And a lot of you, I'm sorry if this is old school for you, you've done this many times before. Essentially, you're filling your test bucket with a series of quizzes. Here's my midterm, here's my final. And the way to create one of these entities is you go to build test right there. You give it a name, a description. You can put your instructions in here. what we're doing is creating a timed test. So I'll show you why in just a minute. So instructions here would be how you want to instruct your students. I typically go with open Bible, open note, open book, timed. And then they're going after multiple choice questions, maybe some, and probably some essays, a combination of both of that. The nice thing about the feature of multiple choice questions, true, false, for example, they're all automated and they grade themselves in Blackboard, as you probably know. So that's a huge time saver. Essay questions require the touch, but I'll show you a time saver on that here in just a little bit. So once you hit submit and create that entity, you create one of these critters, and then essentially you're going to add questions to that quiz, one question at a time. So create a question. Blackboard comes stock with various different types of questions. I'm not an expert in all the different kinds. I don't know the difference between fill in multiple blanks and fill in the blank. I mean, I'm just not an expert in that. I use multiple choice, true, false. Some of you might know the difference. I just don't know. Some of these, like a quiz bowl, I have no idea. Some of them, my hunch is they require more touch when you're grading. You have to go in and actually manually grade those, I think. But true, false is nice. It's pretty easy. But anyway, you build your test down below. And then what you do, when you've got it built below, up top, above control panel, you're going to have to create the test link to that entity. So in my case, I talked to you about weekly folders that I use to organize things. I'm creating one of these entities. And the way I do that is an assessments test. And then the entity I created below has not been assigned yet. So I'm not creating a new test. I'm creating a link to that already created test. And in this case, it's quiz 1. If I hit submit, then what I'm doing is creating this link, this hyperlink to that test. So once a student clicks that link, the way you've designed it, I'm going to show you how to do it, is it's timed. So under the hood, I say under the hood, that means a drop-down menu. What you have to do, this is best practice now I'm showing you, is edit the test options. So right there, edit test options. I'm sorry if it's kind of small. What I can do is send you screenshots of all of the things that I'm showing you, and I'll remind me, Carissa, to email that out to everybody in the room. Edit test options. Here's what we want to avoid, and there's my instructions. It's open book, open Bible, 40 minutes to complete. Make the test available. What I want to not do is click forced completion. So don't do forced completion. Do set timer, and then you put your time there, and sometimes I have to move that over to on so that it saves. And when the student submits their test or time runs out, it's automatically saved. But you have to know for the student, it's saving all along. Every I don't know what the sequence is, but it's saving along the way. But if you do a set timer, here's what happens if you use forced completion. So your student is an international student in a country where internet can be a little bit glitchy, and the internet glitches, they're kicked off the test. They can't get back in. You have to reset their test. The problem is it's midnight, you've gone to bed, and that student's losing a whole night's sleep worrying they failed your class, waiting for the next day to get a hold of you. Finally, they do, and they're just distraught, and they're upset, and you just calmly say, yeah, I'll reset your test, no problem. Just avoid all of that. Just use set timer. It creates a similar experience, but the time is ticking. So if a student gets glitched off of the internet, they can log back in, pick up right where they left off, and maybe lose a minute and a half, 2 minutes of time. That's all that they lose. I never have any students complain with set timer. So just know that as we get to the end of the semester, you're going to have to think about creating your end of semester testing experience. So one of the things that you want to do is create a test window. So that's the way to do it. Display after, display until. Now, the time, the cutoff time on the end of the test window, here's something that you don't want to do like I did, is, click midnight. That shaves a whole day off your test window. No, you want to hit end of day. I was in a IHOP, International House of Pancakes in Florida, over a spring break, and the emails started coming in. And I had to fix that because I'm a knucklehead and I made that mistake. All right. Another thing that's nice about building an online test is you can adjust for students who need extra time or a different test window. If they've talked to Dr. Leeds and let's say they need extra time because they're dyslexic or a learning challenge that they have, you can adjust student-specific for that test. That's kind of helpful. Also, I don't randomize questions just because if there's an awkwardly written question, like a multiple choice that's tripping up students, 10 students in, I want to know what that question is. If I randomize question, I'm not going to know. Students are saying question 3 is really quirky. Question 3 is really quirky. Question 3 is really quirky. In the third email, I'm back into the test saying, what did I misspelled a word or what's going on? So I'll fix the test right in the middle of the test window, and then the rest of the students take that question as it's fixed, and then I'll go in and adjust the grade for that question of the students that missed it, to be fair to them. So that's just a little best kept secret. Now, for the grading, and one more minute, for the grading of essay questions, don't be fearful of assigning essay questions. In Blackboard, there's some best kept secrets. They're hidden jewels. So when I'm ready to grade an essay test, for example, or 2 essay questions on a midterm exam or a final, I'll go to Grade Center, Full Grade Center, and one of the things I do is hide the column of that test until I finish all my grading. That way students don't have access to seeing their score, comparing with their peers, and seeing the feedback or the things that you give back to students for the reasons why they may have missed the question. So all of that's hidden.
Do they see that anyway?
Not if you hide the column.
But I mean, on the test itself, other students see our comments on an individual's test?
Not until after you've graded it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're sharing information.
Oh, they're sharing it verbally amongst, okay.
I suppose that's cheating, and perhaps that could happen in a sinful and fallen world. Yes, it could. Yeah.
They would do that on their own, okay.
All right, so midterm exam. Now I'm ready to grade the essay questions. So here's what I do. In the drop down of the test right there, there's something called grade questions. So if you go to grade questions, it opens up a dashboard of all of the questions for your exam. These are all multiple choice questions that I set up for my midterm. And if I go to the very end, because I didn't randomize, all my essays show up at the end. And that number, 167, is a hyperlink to the next dashboard. That's why it's kind of hidden. And it opens up to a really nice dashboard, student-specific or hide student names. You can totally objectify your grading experience. So that's student 1. I'll hit edit here. And then what I tell my students is for the essays to type in a Word document, spell check it, and then copy and paste it into Blackboard. So then it becomes for you a nice, cleaner, neater reading experience, right? Everything's typed. I make sure I tell my students how to cite text. For example, I want to see that they're interacting with the biblical text, not copying and pasting bunches and bunches and bunches of Bible text. It's not that I'm not interested in reading God's word, but not necessarily in the answer of an essay question. Just show me what text you're interacting with, and then I want to see your words, that kind of a thing. Type in the point total there. If you've taken points off, here's what I do. I've copied and pasted. So I'm going to my own document where I've created a bullet list of all of the things I'm looking for in that essay question. In this case, I put it in the form of a table. And then I right-click, copy, paste. And that's the feedback that I send back to that student. So on an essay question, if I take points off, that student has that feedback. After I unhide the column, they go in and they click their score, and then they're looking around their test. They say, oh, why did he take off points? Oh, that's why. I forgot to talk about Genesis 1, 26, and 27. You give them a feedback loop that way. And that works really well with students in my experience. Retention, emailing out of Grade Center, some testing basics. That's all I wanted to cover with you today. If you'd like the full-blown version, that I can sit down with you and then you can ask personalized questions, just reach out to my office, and Carissa will help set up a time that's convenient for both of us, and we can customize your fall class for your students. Be glad to meet with you and consult with you if you need any extra Blackboard help. All right? And I've already talked to some of you who are doing the flexible course. So any other questions? I went over time. I'm sorry about that.
Good job.
All right. All right. Best of experience for you this semester. Looking forward to it. We're always available if you have any questions. Thank you.
One other thing that I've been told is Convocation is actually the Tuesday, the second week of the semester. So it's not the 20th of August, it's the 27th, which is the following Tuesday. And I've been told we will not have chapel the first week. So chapel begins with Convocation, which makes sense, but it begins on the second week. Doesn't necessarily affect your classroom experience, but I just wanted to communicate that to you.
Do we need to be Convocation?
You don't need to be.